everybody. I'm Brittany Lewis, a breaking news reporter here at Forbes. Joining me once again is Shontell Smith, partner and head of the New York practice at Tusk Strategies. Shontell, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
If you can believe it, this week marked one full year into President Trump's second term, and it has been a whirlwind of 365 days. I want to talk about where we are right now, both at home and abroad, and what that means for Democrats going into the midterms. Aside from having a Republican in the White House, Republicans also control both Congress and Senate. At the beginning of Trump 2.0, the majority of Americans thought the country was heading in the right direction, according to an Emerson College poll. But the same poll 1 year later showed that more Americans now think we are on the wrong track. Also, when you're looking at where we are on the global stage, just this week at Davos, multiple international leaders criticized America under Trump's leadership and said there's now a new world order that they need to prepare for. So talk to us about where you think we are right now, 1 year in.
I think 1 year in, if you are a traditional MAGA Republican, you're happy with what, the president has done in the past year. I think, we've deported more people than, I think previous administrations have. We've definitely buckled down on some of his core messaging of getting people out of the country. But if you're an independent or if you're a Democrat, there's a sense that, there's a lot of instability and uncertainty under this administration, and it just gives a weird feeling. Overall, even if you're a Republican, everyone cares about the bottom dollar. Everyone cares about the prices that are currently like ripping through every state. Everyone has seen an increase in their utilities, whether it's electric, whether it's food, and a lot of people associate that with Trump's tariffs. So I think right now, they always say it's the economy stupid, but right now the economy, it's not doing as well. The market is always it's been volatile this past year based on some of the policy decisions that the president has made. So we're just in a world of, instability and uncertainty, especially in the US. I think overall, while his core MAGA base is probably this clapping and they're ranking him an A, independents, who he needs in order to win, well, not he, who Republicans need in order to win, whether it's in the House or in the Senate, they're feeling uncertain. And we definitely know that the Democrats are feeling uncertain going into the midterms.
Two issues that President Trump won on in 2024, and Republicans in general, were immigration and the economy, right? People thought Republicans were better equipped at handling that. Now, Republicans aren't getting good marks for either of them, right? Let's start with the economy, because there's a pessimistic outlook on how people feel about the economy now and how people view it in a year from now. And according to Moody's Analytics, the average U.S. household is spending $184 more a month now on the same goods and services, more than they were a year ago, and close to $600 more than they were on the same goods and services over 3 years ago. I mean, that's a lot of money. People are feeling it, right? People are not feeling good about the economy. President Trump said, we're feeling this Trump economic boom. People aren't buying that, right? And he's saying affordability, I'm going to deal with it, but it's also a Democrat hoax. Right now, he's one of the richest people in the world. He has a $6.7 billion net worth. What are people thinking about this? A, and B, how do Democrats use that to their advantage?
So I think how people are feeling it. Remember, he ran on affordability. When the election was a year ago, he ran on the cost of eggs. I remember it was a whole big thing. The cost of eggs are so expensive. When I get elected, I'm going to bring groceries down. Groceries are not down a year later. So I think, people are just feeling like, hey, am I being duped? Especially when you're seeing the richer get rich. Some of the biggest and the richest people in this country, whether it's, the Facebook CEO or Amazon CEO, there are people who are getting richer. And it seems like the billionaires and the oligarchs, they're getting richer under this Trump America. But the average American is not seeing much progression. I think he marked his economy an A plus. People are saying actually it's a C, because all they're seeing is a lack of affordability, whether it's in housing, whether it's food, whether it's utilities. There's not a lot for the average day American, but there's a lot for the 1% and 2%. To answer your second question, how do Democrats go into the mid-year? I think Democrats need to focus on bread and butter issues. Stay away from the social issues and focus on the things that matter to people. Why am I spending more? What are the policies that Democrats can enact to give an immediate sense of relief financially in everyday Republican, I'm sorry, in everyday American pockets? I think once that happens, I think if they keep laser focus on affordability and tune out all the social issues, I think the Democrats can be successful. But once they get into some of the social issues, I feel that's where Americans tune out. Right
I
now,
can
Americans want relief.
I can just imagine the campaign ads, right? Democrats saying, "You don't feel good, your pocketbook doesn't feel good." The Republicans control the White House, House, and Senate. I'm sure Republicans would say, "Hey, you didn't feel good under Biden. Bidenomics didn't work for you either." What's the pivot here? Because they do have a point, right? People didn't feel good under Biden and the Biden economy either. People felt very similarly now. Everything's less affordable. The American dream seems further and further out of reach. How do Democrats sell an economy that isn't President Biden's, isn't Vice President Kamala Harris's? How do they sell a new way?
I think it's the gravity of how uncomfortable people feel. And yes, under Biden, the economy wasn't great, but it wasn't such a dramatic pull at your pockets. Right now, you know, I think about just like basic commodities in the past year. And if you think about it, a lot of people associate the significant increase in goods due to many of the policies of Trump. Like the tariffs is an example of, the cost of lumber, some of the things that we outsource from different countries that significantly increased under Trump. So I think they at least have, under Biden, the economy was bad, but there wasn't a particular posture or position that Biden took that made the economy bad. It just was the ups and downs of everyday economics. But under Trump, there are specific policies that have proven to cost, basically to push products and goods to a higher price as a result of what President Trump has done. Like something like healthcare, that has increased due to the actions of the Republicans. So we have to be honest about the policies of the Republicans and Trump during this past year and how it has impacted. And remember, under I think it's the big beautiful bill that he said, there are going to be even more financial implications that happen after the midterms because they delayed some of the impact and some of the costs, like basically some of the policies that had like impact on the economy. They pushed it back till after the midterms because they knew the economy was going to be bad. So there's going to be even more financial strife that people are going to see.
You and I have talked before how Republicans are better at getting a succinct
Yeah.
message, concise message across. And while Democrats, if they have an idea that you think is a good idea, sometimes it gets lost in the jargon, it gets lost in the verbose words. I mean, what specifically do you think their messaging needs to be?
Show a utility bill the last day of Biden, show a utility bill right now. Show the cost of whatever under Biden, show the cost under right now. Show Trump's net worth before he took office, show his net worth now. Show the net worth of the highest 1%, 2% before, show it now. I think some things you can't look away. You just need a visual. And I think the numbers just speak for themselves. Numbers don't lie. And I think if Democrats can cut the nonsense and get, hey, affordability, like you want to be able to buy a house, we have to figure out policies to help you. You want to do everyday things? Let's figure it out. But I think, the problem with Democrats is they overthink it and they overthink the messaging and they overthink their strategy when it's really simple. Trump had a really simple campaign where it was all about affordability, making America great. And in order to make America great, I'm going to focus on immigration. I'm going to make, the cost of things go lower. I'm going to put law and order back into America. Figure out your slogan and then show three or four things that impact everyday Americans and show how you're going to do something to make it better.
Another reason President Trump won in 2024 was immigration, right? More voters thought he was better equipped at handling that than Democrats were. And when you're looking at the numbers here for immigration, I mean, border crossings hit historic lows in the first year of his second term, but that's not the biggest story when it comes to immigration, right? The biggest domestic story right now is what's happening in Minneapolis and this standoff between ICE and protesters there. I was talking to a pollster yesterday, and he said even some Republicans right now are feeling queasy when they're seeing these videos of ICE, and they're all going viral ever since an ICE agent shot Renee Good in Minneapolis earlier this month. There's been anti-ICE protests popping up all throughout the country, videos of ICE agents acting really aggressively towards protesters and people alike. Even Joe Rogan, the podcaster, he was questioning the agency's tactics on his podcast, right? He was saying, I feel really uncomfortable when I see these videos of ICE agents. They're masked, they're snatching up Americans, they're asking for their papers. He compared them to the Gestapo. I mean, how do you view this, A? And B, what do you think Democrats can do seeing this?
Well, first of all, Democrats need to stop voting in favor of increased funds for ICE. We can start there. I think I just recently saw something. There were like there were specifically two Democrats in New York that voted to increase funding for ICE, which was Long Island Democrats, but still very disturbing. I think what Democrats can do, look, when the president ran, he did say, I'm going to crack down on ICE, but he always said he was going after the bad guys. What we're seeing is an increased number of people with no criminal records being deported. And I don't think that's what people wanted. People wanted illegal people with criminal histories that were dangerous and a threat to their communities to be removed from the country. We're seeing children being impacted by ICE agents. We're seeing ICE agents really acting without authority and acting like there's no check and balance. That's not what Americans want. Americans want some sense of civility, and they want to know that the system works. So I think Democrats, I mean, I could think of a ton of campaign ads that they could do, just showing the lack of, humanity that has been happening under Trump and his deportations. It's just, we saw a little kid being used by ICE just yesterday. The things that we're seeing, people dying, ICE agents, attacking people who are just doing, practicing their First Amendment rights of protesting. It's getting a little bit out of control and very queasy. And, again, if you're a staunch MAGA, I'm sure this is like you're okay with it. But the everyday independent, and like we have to remember, the independent is a key voting block to anybody, whether it's for President Trump or the next person that's going to run for president, whether it's for the House. It's very important, this block. And if they're feeling queasy, if I'm a Republican, I'm getting anxious and I'm trying to figure out ways to make deportations or immigration be a little bit more humane and not so like offensive to the like common person.
I was listening to this NPR interview with Rahm Emanuel, Obama's chief of staff, as well as the former mayor of Chicago, and it seems like he's really trying to appeal to that independent, everyday American voter because he was talking about ICE. And remember, some Democrats were calling to abolish ICE, and he said he kind of moved away from that idea and said, I think we need to end ICE as we know it. I mean, what's the tagline there? Do you think, what's the messaging there? Because I think when Americans hear abolish ICE, they might think, or not all Americans, but maybe more independents think, hey, we still need something because if ICE is abolished, then we could have that border crisis again. I mean, where do you fall on the messaging there?
Look, I think Americans want law and order. They want civility. So I don't think it's abolish ICE. But I think it's somewhere, it's just like law enforcement. No one's saying get rid of law. Well, some people actually are saying get rid of law enforcement, but the average American does not want to get rid of law enforcement. They like their neighborhood cops. They like people to serve and protect them. They want them around. Do they want frameworks or measures so they don't take it too far and go out of hand? Yes. I think it's just bringing back humanity and restoring order within the organization. Yes, you can get the bad guys out, people with criminal histories and people that shouldn't be here. But the way you do it is really important. I'm not that good at comms, so I can't think of a catchy slogan, But I do think it's like just bring back sanity and order. That's my slogan. I don't know if it works, but that would be my slogan.
I like that. And I think that that sounds like something because you wouldn't know if you're a Democrat or Republican saying that bring back sanity and order. So I think that could attract, everyone, Republicans who might feel disenfranchised right now, Democrats, as well as independents. And when you're looking at the midterms now, as we're sitting here, we're about a little less than a year out. What specifically are you looking out for from the Democrats? Because as of right now, there's not really one leader who's emerged from the
There is
party,
no
right?
leader
The
right
day
now.
and the day after midterms is when people start thinking about their presidential runs. So what specifically are you looking out for from your party?
I'm looking for someone that's not afraid to do the hard thing. I struggle with the California governor, Gavin Newsom, because at times I think he's a little too aggressive with Trump in the back and forth. But then I think that's what we need. We need someone to call the BS. We need someone to fight with the same tools and tactics that Republicans are. There's always this morality that Democrats have that they can't go to a certain level when they're campaigning. And, there's a purity test that Democrats hold themselves to that I don't think Republicans do. And I think that's why Republicans win, because it's any means necessary to win. It is tribal warfare to win for Republicans. And I think Democrats, when they cut the nonsense and really get into the meat of it, of like helping people affordability, like it's the slogan that everyone's using, but really break down what affordability is in a catchy phrase that everyone can use, and really what are the 4 or 5 core principles. That's what's going to help Democrats get back to power. Will they do it? Remains to be seen. And I think the Democratic leader that can figure that out and really shine. Like it's not a popularity test. It's who's going to get things done. And I think, right now we're seeing a bunch of wonderful governors. But we're not seeing how they're going to fight Trump. How are they going to fight Republicans? How are they going to do anything differently from a Biden, from a Kamala, and from the people of the past? Obama, though very controversial, had an easy slogan, like, yes, we can. Like, yes, we can have a better America. Yes, we can do the hard things. We haven't, like, what was Biden's slogan? He didn't have one. What was Kamala's? I can't remember Kamala's slogan. And if she did have a slogan, it wasn't memorable. We need something to bring hope and inspiration, but also just really is common sense. So I hope the Democrats spend this time to figure it out. I personally feel this is the time they need to strike. They need to focus out their messaging. They need to do focus groups to figure out where the core things that everyday Americans, including Republicans, care about. And those are the things that they focus on. Cut the crap. If
And what
not, they will never be back in power anytime soon.
and when you're looking back at Obama's slogan, the yes we can, I mean, how optimistic
It
does
was.
that sound? And how optimistic did Democrats feel at that time? And even, I mean, that's not good when we're sitting here. I remember when Kamala was running, it was Brat Summer. Then Biden was constantly saying he was fighting for the soul of the nation. Nothing is as catchy from the past 20 years as yes we can and then make America great again. I mean, it's distinct and it gets the point across of what people or what the campaign is. And when you're thinking about what the Democrats campaign should be, do you think it is fighting against Trump and saying, hey, he's squashing norms both domestically as well on the world stage? I mean, we're getting to really consequential places. Or do you think it's striking that optimistic Obama-esque tone again?
So this is, I'm glad you asked this because I've been struggling with this. It's like the alarmists, like I have friends that are like, I had dinner with a friend yesterday, and she's like, the way this world is, the things that we're doing in this country, in this world, I feel uneasy. And it's an alarmist tone that Democrats have been signaling. And they have been saying, like, this is not how we as Americans conduct ourselves in the country, but also internationally. But I don't think people are feeling it or it's really connecting with people. And I don't know why. We invaded a foreign country, took their president and his wife. It seemed like people were like, huh? But no one was repulsed or no one felt strong feelings about it. So I don't know. I just don't think that's the way to go. but I just don't know what is the proper way to address Trump. I don't think they should focus on Trump because, I mean, legally, I don't think there's a 2020. I mean, I don't, I guess this would be, I don't know if he would be running another presidential term because, presidents can only run 2 terms, but I guess that would be a constitutional thing that maybe he would challenge. I think they should just focus on not even the Republicans. What are they just trying to, like, what are they trying to do? Like, what is, like, Obama had, like, make, like, yes, we can. I think right now everyone's feeling pretty crappy. And I think it's just, what is the America that we aspire to, or we should be aspiring to move past this unique time in history? If I was a Democrat, I'd be like, what do I, and people talk about manifesting, whatever. What is the America I want to see in 2028? And what is the slogan that we're going to use to get there?
Well, we will definitely keep an eye out for what the messaging or winning message will be. And Shontell, I appreciate our conversations as always. Thank you so much for joining me. You're welcome back
Thank you.
anytime.
Thank you.